Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Mean Green Nation podcast. Welcome to it. If you're a close watcher of the YouTube of this, then you're like, oh, hey, did Adam cut his hair? The answer is yes. I did. Shaved it all down. You might know that I had like longish hair. Now it's gone. So I held up this beanie that I have. I bought it last time I was in Dallas, Fort Worth, ready to, spend my dollars on my alma mater. And, I was like, it's not that warm. I don't really need a beanie. It's not that cold. My head's pretty warm with all this hair. That's a good part of having all that hair. But I cut it off, and now I'm like, it's kind of cold out here. My pillow feels nice, though. I can feel it. So there you go. Good times there. Hey, we have Greg on the show. No Aldo this time. We got Greg. Aldo's trying to get on the show. I closed the door on him. I said, you don't talk basketball, but I can't have you on the show. So I closed the door on him. Now he's like, he's living life, whatever. So we didn't get to talk. We had a scheduling snafu. So we didn't get to talk about Navy. So we're going to talk about Navy right now. We're going to keep it short and sweet because I know everybody's moving on to Temple, right? That big old matchup with the Temple Owls. All right, so here's the thoughts. And I wrote about them on MGN210, right? You can subscribe to Substack now. Number one, Navy's defense was pretty good. And the way they won the game, they won the game, was by sacking Chandler Rogers. That's really it. Eric Morris's offense, with Chandler Rogers at the helm, has been very good. One thing I love about Chandler Rogers is that he doesn't turn the ball over when he's throwing the football, right? My criticism of him was like, he's probably holding on to that ball just a little too long. And, with good reason. You know what I mean? It's like, man, Brett Favre really does like to, because he has a strong arm. He's like, I can make it over there. I'll fling it over there. Chandler Rogers has a strong arm. He makes good decisions, and he knows the offense, and he trusts his teammates, right? So it can lead to him going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me go back to 1 real quick. Okay, is he? Oh, there he is, right? That's great, dealing the ball out. But it's not good if the Navy guy is coming from his blind side and doesn't see him, right? So those are sort of related. Navy got to him a lot. It was sacked 8 times, whatever. 2 of them were fumbles. That's bad. I don't know if you know this team. don't fumble the ball. So the second last 2 sacks, right? The one that was a sack fumble, they ended up scoring a touchdown. The first one was a sack fumble. They got the ball, but the defense held them. I'll talk about defense in a sec. Defense held them. So the second one, sack fumble, they got the ball. Defense couldn't hold them. They scored a touchdown. That was the lone score for Navy in the second half, right? But that put North Texas out of 1-score range. They were down by 3. They had just scored a touchdown. They were gearing up to drive down. Sack fumble, All right, so they get the ball. They go down. They score, right? They get that touchdown. Defense, this much maligned defense. I don't think the regular guys don't really use malign too often, except when they're talking about a defense and they say, you know what? That's a much maligned defense. There you go. Limited vocabulary we football fans have. Anyway, they get the stop. Shout out Roderick Brown getting into the backfield on 3rd and whatever, little fullback dive. I think they were trying to trap him or something. I don't know what, but he was like, hey, look what I found. I found me a fullback. Let me take him to the ground. Hey, 2 minutes to go, a timeout. With an air raid offense and a quarterback makes good decisions, and you got playmakers on the outside. I felt good about that scenario. Now, here's the thing, right? It was a sack to start the drive, right? 7-yard loss. That was the same way the previous drive started. 7-yard gain. The last one was a little throw to Rod Burns. This one was a little run, I think it was. Or it was incomplete, and then a 7-yard gain. Then a 4th and 10, 4th and 11, completion to Rod Burns, right? That was on the previous drive. We caught it. We're like, wow, look at this guy. He's flinging it in there. On the last one, it's incomplete. But he put it on his hands. It was a little diving catch. He would have had to make a catch of, not quite the year, but, it was a candidate thereof. He has a diving catch. Now, you say all the stuff, hey, your receiver, it's on your hands, you got to catch it. All that stuff applies, and it's true. But let me tell you, you're not going to win a whole lot of football games if you're designing up plays that end up with your receiver diving on the floor trying to make a catch, right? You want it on his hands on the run, all that other good stuff. Now, it was a great play attempt, because there was a guy running on his face. He threw it, put it on time, on target, whatever, all that good stuff. I'd say you can't criticize those guys, Rodgers, Burns, for not catching, not completing that play, if you don't praise them, right, for the previous one where they completed it. The thing is, like I said, you can't just have, hey, we need miracle drives. We need 7 miracle drives. Can we do it? Can we do 4 4th and 10 conversions in the game? Can we do that, guys? It's not something you want. So there's a failure. It's the sacks. Sacks are the thing that lost the game. And, it's not new territory, right? I think the defensive coordinators, they go to sleep and say, I want sacks. Please let me get some sacks. That's how they draw it up. So that's my quick takeaway. I didn't think the offense played bad. They got in trouble. I didn't think the defense played poor. They had that middle section where they allowed 2 touchdowns, but they held the Navy offense in the second half. They almost got burnt, right? But almost doesn't count. So there you go. Greg, how are you doing? Do you disagree with anything I said about the Navy game?
No, look, I think we can agree that football comes down to those situational moments. Like when you have two pretty evenly matched teams, I don't think there was a whole lot separating both those teams, but Navy took advantage of different moments. I thought they did a really good job disguising their whole blitz package, right? Because so much of what North Texas does, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right, is based off the numbers in the box, right? And it seemed like they wanted to catch North Texas checking to a play and then overwhelm them with either the numbers or then drop out into coverage. And, maybe confuse Rodgers. He wasn't really confused. I think like where the problems come in is like we don't have an offensive line that's used to pass blocking as much as our offensive line is. Trying to pick up all those multiple blitzes that Navy was throwing at them, that can be difficult, right? If you don't know where the blitz is coming from as an offensive lineman, hey, this guy's coming. We're shifting this way. It can be confusing. The thing like with Morris, the final drive, I wish maybe they would have run the ball on second down after the sack or taken the timeout after the run where it was fourth down. Like I hate when you get in that situation, the game's on the line, it's 4th and 10. You've got to make the first down. Why don't we just use our timeout now and then let's draw up the best play that we can come up with. Otherwise, the game's over. It felt like a rush situation. I would have liked them to just let's take a pause. We got 50 something seconds left. If we don't get this, game's over. But let's draw up something. Let's make sure everybody knows what they're doing on this play instead of it being confusing. So, and then I didn't get to see the beginning of the game. My daughter, she wanted her baptism this past weekend. Like she scheduled it herself with the priest and everything. Like she's a little bit older to be getting baptized because we didn't really do it at first, and she's been pushing us for it. So I didn't get to see the beginning, but where I guess we got down to the goal line, we didn't punch it in for a touchdown. Those opportunities. That's a make or break thing. The Texas OU game, 4 plays separate that game, and it's really the 4 plays at the goal line where OU steps Texas. Same thing with North Texas. So I think the defense is getting a little bit better. There's still that issue where they can't tackle, right? And I don't think that's going to be solved in practice. Like that's an off-season thing. And Morris, his press conference is like, hey, we're going to go back. We're going to demand perfection this week. Like, okay, well, why weren't you demanding perfection the other weeks? Like what has changed now? Like he keeps changing the narrative of the season as we're going along. And I like his press conferences, right? Like he gives some good insight, but like at the same time, I'm like, okay, you can tell that they weren't a physical team by the first week of the season. Like they did not run a physical camp, and that's fine, but it didn't pay off for them because they didn't upgrade the defensive talent, and now it shows they got guys that can't tackle.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. Just a couple points that I want to highlight. Like number one, you see why if you've ever been a fan that like criticizes conservative play on first down on one of those last drives, right? 2 minutes left or something like that. Well, the reason is that you just don't want to get sacked, right? There's a lot of play calling is like not like on Madden where you can just call the play and then just go out there and do it, right? It just doesn't work that way. Some of it is like you want your team to feel good, right? You get a little short completion, you feel good, right? Even second and 7 feels a lot better than 2nd and 17, right? And then you're like, well, you just don't get sacked. Well, that's real hard, right? Because the other team is trying to sack you. Sometimes they're better than you, right? So that's the game there, right? Like you have to find the balance as a play caller, as a head coach, as a quarterback leader, all those things, all these decisions. You go to off season, there's a lot of training involved in figuring out the decision to make at that time. So I don't really like to second guess it. I'm not saying you were second guessing it, but I think when we as fans are looking at it like, oh, why didn't they just do this? Well, a series of decisions led up to this point where they're really choosing between a handful of things, and this is maybe was the best option. I mean, we don't see Chandler Rogers in practice. We don't have those discussions with him. We don't know what he feels comfortable with, all that stuff. And so then, if they choose a play, maybe that's the play that kind of made sense, and Navy just made a better play, right? They came off the edge, they got him. They were doing a lot of disguising, and I thought they were a little bit more aggressive late, which is when you want to do it, right? If you're dialing up a plan, you kind of show a bunch of weird stuff, and now you say, all right, now we're just going to get them because it's fourth down, it's high leverage situations. Like you don't just force a punt here and then they just move on and they diagnose it. The game's over, right? You get one sack basically in the series. So it worked out for them. And to your point, right, like you said, decisions made in June and July, and maybe even springtime, right, when you're deciding who to get on the team or when you're designing up your fall camp, they have effects, right? You start reaping those decisions, right? It's very much like farming, right? You plant some seeds early summer, and then you get them in October. You're like, do we have a tenacious defense that can, knock people off the ball? Oh, no, we don't. We got guys that get pushed around. Well, you can't just say, well, we're just going to tackle real hard now. Like you said, you have to build that in. Hey, we're a team that tackles, right? When do you just say that? You say that when you show up. Hi, my name is Eric Morris. This is my defensive coordinator. We're going to tackle the crap out of everybody and every time, every place, right? We're going to be the greatest tackling team. And so you build that into everything you do so that way it's not hard. It's not new. You just are. You are a great tackling team. You build these habits up, right? It's all the kind of things that the coaches talk about. They're very cliched about it, but you have to build habits. Now, we're going to get to basketball in like 2 minutes, but like that's a Grant McGaslin saying, right? Why do you practice going over screens in fall camp, summer camp, whatever that is? So that way when it's March and you're playing against Wisconsin in the NIT tournament, it's not a big deal because you always do it. It's second nature. Second nature. You breathe. You don't think about it. You go over the screen. You don't think about it, right? The screen, not scream. Maybe you scream while you go over the screen. But that's how you do it, right? So the decisions for those things, way back here, they're not now. So like you said, I can't be like, oh well, why don't they just improve tackling, right? Like on the video games where you just go do the tackling thing. Do. You can't. It doesn't work that way. It's very hard to get stronger and to build the mindset of being a great. So how do you improve it? Looking to the next off season, you recruit some guys that can tackle, great tacklers that are good defenders, just physical specimens. But it's also about building your camp and your system around being great tacklers and great defenders. Because you can get a great guy and then teach him bad habits or make it easy to have bad habits, right? Arm tackling. Like I'm a physical specimen, and here at North Texas, nobody's barking at me for tackling, perfect form to get my feet in the right position. Here they just say it's cool because you're such a physical specimen if you just arm tackle the guy, and all these guys that could do it against. But then next season when we play a big team and I try to do my arm tackle, they throw me to the ground and they score a touchdown, right?
Sorry. I'm dying over here.
Yeah, there you go. So let's get into it. Any other thoughts on the football team that you want to toss out there?
No.
I would say, right, is Chandler Rogers better than Austin Ani? Thumbs up, you got it. You can't see that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take a sip of this tea.
You got the tea. I'm sipping
That's
on
it's
the
actually cider,
Fiji
double
water.
cider. No. Ooh, fancy guy. Can't you know like you don't care about the water right there? You know he's gonna have to go out to Fiji, ship it over to me on a
Mm.
truck.
Well, what can we do?
So here's the good news, folks. Basketball season. It's right around the corner. I think the first scrimmage is like the 29th or something like that. It's usually end of October. And they're going to do their secret scrimmages that are going to be tweeted about and all that good stuff. Um, but
First one is in secret. Well, I mean, the first one we know about, not secret.
yeah,
Sam Houston.
yeah. So that's how they do that, right? They're secret scrimmages, but then everybody knows about them, right? They're like, hey, in the secret scrimmage, I heard that so and so did well. Well, here's the deal: we lost our guy, right? You know, I know a lot of people listen to the show. They're not super deep basketball fans, so we'll tell you. The last time we discussed basketball, North Texas won the NIT tournament in Las Vegas, which means the Meadows. In case anybody was wondering. Um, yeah, so it was good times. Tyler Perry went on to Kansas State, right? He's over there doing social media hypes, all that stuff. Fine, deserved, all that good stuff. The new guys are the old guys, right? The new guys that are staying on that are going to be the core of this team, and that's we'll get into that in a second. But it's old faces, right? But it's new roles, right? We've said this about these guys. We wanted them to step up, and that's the question. Can they do it? Yes. Do we want them, to take on these new roles and be the kind of guys that can, I don't want to say like dominate, but like take the program to the next level, right? Aaron Scott, Reuben Jones, Mulai Sissoko. Those are the old guys, right? We've said on this show, you and I together, that Reuben Jones could be 15 to 20 points scorer because he has the handles, he can get to the rack, he has the range. If he wants to do that kind of stuff, he can. Aaron Scott, famously in the almanac, he was said what about him. Grant McCaslin said that he could be the best player in North Texas history if he wants to, and that seemed a little bit far fetched. Like I kind of see the shape of what you're saying, but it's getting as you got closer, and in the season, he really turned that on. And I went to what is it, Kentucky? Yeah, I was in Kentucky, and he showed some things. Right, he was like, "Oh, let me get this pump fake drive and score." And I talked to him, and he was like, "Yeah, I just been working on it." He's nice. Yeah, just been working on it. And yeah, you can see it. You're like, oh, this guy, right? He has a little Kobe like pump fake, little fadeaway. He has that there, and then he also has just an ability to move around. And they say he does crazy things in practice. So you look at those guys and say, can they be the star dudes, forward guard? They're both lengthy. They both can play sort of guard positions, sort of forward positions. Can they be those modern type basketball players that can do a lot for you? Yes, they can. And then you add to that some new dudes. Now we'll say Sissoko did a great job. He was the lone pivot, and they won against Oklahoma State, at Oklahoma State, against Wisconsin, and then against UAB. All with big dudes that can do some things. And Sissoko held his own, didn't get in foul trouble. He scored when he needed to. Lots of great stuff. These are three dudes that I think we're building a squad around. And you're gonna mention all the new guys because we lost Tyler Perry, Kai Huntsberry, who was on the Bleed Green team. Abu Usman, I forget where he went.
He went to Rhode Island.
Yeah, Jaden Martinez, and then Tyree Edey. All quality.
Or did he go to Xavier? He went to one of those. I think it might have
I
been
think it was
Xavier.
Xavier. Yeah, did you know that Xavier and Javier are all the same? And it all means house on the hill or something like that. It's all Echeverria. Anyway,
Well, there's your history lesson.
I got a lot of these, man. I got a lot of these. And then Tyree Edey, big time playmakers, big time contributors, and I don't want to relive last year, but they all did big time things. So, what are we missing? Let's go to it. Greg, what are we getting this year?
Well, I mean, you hit on a big part of that is like Aaron Scott and Reuben Jones. Like, what do they grow into? How does Ross Hodge get them to take that next step? And what do they look like within the offense? Because I think they're going to be the guys that are relied upon early on to establish, how we're going to go forward in this season. A lot of it, we've talked in the past is like Reuben is such a creative player. right? I mean, some of the passes that he comes up with inside the game are just unbelievable. They've been the wow moment outside of Tyler Perry hitting like last second shots or big threes in games. The wow moments have kind of come from Reuben Jones with like a steal or some sort of pass, full court pass, right? So I think when Ross Hodges has been interviewed as like, hey, hey, we're gonna run, we're gonna be a little bit faster pace of a team, right? And I think it all kind of starts with Ruben. Like when he grew up in high school and playing for a program like Houston Yates that scores a lot of points, gets up and down the floor. Like you want to take advantage of that with Ruben Jones, and we really haven't had the opportunity to see him in an offense like that. So I think they will play a little bit faster, but I think it's going to be about opportunistic running, like getting the steals, getting rebounds, pushing the ball. And so, like allowing Ruben to play in the open court, I think that's going to be exciting for the fans going forward. Aaron Scott,
Well,
you've hit on a lot of the things too.
one note about that, right, is that I guess I don't want to speak poorly of him, but like Tyler Perry, when I said this, I was like, it looked like you were trying to push the pace a little bit, and then Mac had said, "Yeah, we try to do that, and we've been trying to do that this year." Really, it seems like it was really Tyler likes to get it and hold the ball, and he likes to bring it up. So, and I mean, like I said, it's not bad. It ended up with an NIT title, right? So you can't be like, well, it's and then they were just a game away against a good UAB team who got to the NIT final, right? In the conference tournament. That it was not bad, but you don't have a Tyler Perry. Nobody's demanding that we go slow, right? Nobody on this squad. We'll talk about them in a second. You're talking about Aaron Scott. Nobody on here. You say, you know what? It's not a terrible option. It's a great option actually. If we run it slow and let this guy cook at the top of the key, we don't have that guy. Tyler Perry was that guy for 2 years. Javion Hamlin, sorry, it was just dancing around my brain. Javion Hamlin was another guy that could do that. Those are not terrible options, right? If you say, it's like saying, hey, James Harden, how about you go one on one with this dude and go cook him up? Yeah, you do that. But if you don't have that guy, let's go run. Let's put the ball in the playmaker's hand. A little bit of Magic Johnson, tall forward, point forward type dude in our guy Reuben Jones. So just that note. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like I think the offense will be. Look, we're gonna fast break off of the steals, off of the rebounds, off of made baskets, and it's going to be if you have an open dunk, an open layup, or a shooter that's open for a three that's got the green light, like we're going to take it. Like early in the shot clock, we're going to look for those things. But if it's not there, I think then they'll settle into an offense which is a little bit slower paced, but not as slow paced as McCaslin. I think like there's some things like we'll get into, but Aaron Scott, like the one thing, like he's created offense for himself off of offensive rebounds, slashing, spot up threes in the corner, at the top of the key. Now it's going to be like, how does Ross Hodge incorporate him into the offense? Is it, we're going to throw it to him in the post and he's going to be able to score with his back to the basket? Like, is that an element to his game that he's added this year? Is he going to be able to take guys off the dribble? Are they going to run some sets where they set screens for him? He pops out for an elbow shot. Or is he going to be like maybe the Thomas Bell where, he's the dude setting the screen at the top of the key and it's a pick and pop situation, right? Because Thomas was the guy that was always left alone. And it was kind of like, okay, we're going to let him, just hang out there. We can't really do that with Aaron Scott because he's a guy capable of making the three. So it's going to be interesting to see where they fit Aaron Scott into this offense. Then you look at the host of the new guys. Like, I really think that Hodge and his new staff went out and did a good job adding athleticism and length to his team, right? It's not a lot of under the radar guys either. They went out and got Power Five transfers in C.J. Nolan, the guard from Oklahoma. He's a freshman, all Big 12 guy. He's a big body point guard. I ultimately think like he'll probably be in the starting lineup as maybe the primary ball handler after Ruben. But you're talking about a guy kind of like in the mold of Kai Huntsberry. He might not be as good of a shooter as Huntsberry was, but I think it's a similar build of a body, maybe a little bit bigger. And then they added in the transfer from Ole Miss, Robert Allen. So he's going to be the guy that plays the 4 and the 5 position, and he's very versatile. So he's one of those guys that's maybe a better passer than he is scorer. So when he comes in, whether they start him or they sit him, and he's the five that comes in for Sissoko, he kind of opens up the offense because he can shoot threes. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but he can shoot threes. But like I said, tossing it to him in the post and doing some of those things that Zach Simmons did when he was, getting doubled and then kicking it out to the open shooters. One of the first guy, Bugs. We've seen John Bugs from UTSA. We've seen a lot of them over the years. He's a great shooter, but he's coming into UNT. He doesn't have to do all the things that he did at UTSA. He doesn't have to be a primary scorer. What he has to be is the knockdown, like Drez McBride type of guy. Like, hey, when you're open, our guards make penetration into the lane. We kick it to you. You knock down the three. Like that's your job. But he's able to play really good defense. He's able to dribble drive as well too. You added in the transfer from Oklahoma State / TCU, Rondell Walker, a 6'5" guard, versatile. Some people, when they were first scouting him coming out as a freshman, he had point guard abilities. Adding that type of length to this lineup, I mean, it enhances their ability to stop people on defense because that's kind of one of the weaknesses that we've had is the length on the wings. Besides Ruben and Scott, you really haven't had another player on the bench. You had Matthew Stone, and he's been that effort guy, but he hasn't been somebody that can match up athletically with some of the guards that we're going to go against from Memphis or St. John's when we get in the Charleston Classic tournament.
Yeah, just so
Added in, go ahead.
one of those things about like Tyler Perry is that he was a good defender. Like he gave a lot of effort. He got in the right spot. He would do a lot of digs. You can see him working. Like the team was a good defensive team, and Tyler Perry was a good defender. But like I said, there's only so much you can do as like a 6-foot guard, right? And he was like 5'11", 5'10".
Yeah.
And if you're a good defender, hey, and also you're 6'5" and big, then you're a very good defender, right? Reuben Jones is 6'5" and then he's lengthy, and he got the vote of FAU, right? Went to the Final Four. I was talking to their guys, and we were watching the North Texas game together, and they were like, Reuben Jones, that was our vote, our team vote for Defensive Player of the Year. Like he just, they talked about he's always in the right spot. The way he defends, just everything that's good about Reuben Jones. We've seen him over the years be the primary defender in some crunch time moments, right? Where he was defending Kobe Williams, right? We'll see him again at Tulsa. He was defending him, and he shut him down. He made him do some things. Having another guy with like at least the size and effort that can kind of do some of that same thing. You have this guard lineup of Reuben Jones 6'5", Rondell Walker 6'5", right? Aaron Scott 6'7", and he can guard. He probably can guard a kind of maybe a taller point, but Aaron Scott can guard a lot of dudes, right? That's a lot of versatility. One of the things we liked about Sissoko, you were talking about this, right, was his ability to step out, his movement on defense. He's not just a big lump in the middle.
No.
Yeah, he can move, and like that gives North Texas a lot of tools to do what they've already been doing, which is playing great defense, and that's exciting.
Yeah. Then, before he stepped down, I was going to talk about we've always had the JUCO guy, right? Tyler Perry, the last JUCO guy, Jason Edwards. Like I don't know if Jason Edwards is a fit for McCaslin. I think them playing a little bit faster now, I think he's a better fit for this team with what Ross Hodge wants to do. Like just an electric guard with speed. He can create his own shot. He's a good 3-point shooter. He's a good finisher at the rim. Like I love the thought of him coming off the bench and being instant offense for this. Like if Bugs doesn't start and Edwards doesn't start, and then they come in as your sixth and your seventh guys, like because hey, you're struggling to score some points. Like that's instant offense right there. Right, and he's a guy that can play the one, he can play the two. So there's a lot of things that they can do with him. But he's not really. I mean, he's what I think he's like 6'2". So he's
Edwards,
not completely.
yeah, he's like 6 foot, yeah.
Yeah, so he's not completely undersized. You had the freshman, Alex Cotton. he was injured for most of last year in high school, but before that, his junior year, he was a really good player. He's kind of similar in the mold to Aaron Scott, just a little bit undersized from him, but he's 6'5". But still, again, he comes in with that defensive presence, right? He's probably further ahead of most freshmen coming in defensively than offensively. But he does have a really good shot, and I think that over time that his game will grow. Now, I don't know if he's going to find playing time in this group because they are a deeper team than they've been probably in the past. Like a lot of the guys that they brought in, Robert Allen's going to play, John Bugs is going to play, Edwards is going to play, Nolan's going to play, Walker's going to play. Then you look at the guys that you have coming back, you know, Scott's going to play, Stone is going to get to play, Jones is going to get to play, Sissoko's going to get to play. I think Christian Moore, the point guard, the little water bug left-hander.
Yeah.
I loved his game last year when he got in. He showed some ability to knock down some threes. So is he able to carve out a role for himself in this? So, they've got a lot of talent, maybe more talent than they've had in the past couple of years. So Hodge did a good job with that, right? I don't think there was going to be any question with Hodge taking over that he wasn't going to be able to get talent, right? And I don't think I think eventually this team will come together. They'll meld well together, but it's exciting. I mean, we have the breaking news that came out today with, we get Northern Iowa as the first game of the season. Like, man, that's big time.
So yeah, I want to temper some expectations just a little bit, not yours or not, because I think I'm excited about it.
You can't temper expectations.
But it's more like this is how, because I think everybody's used to like our Conference USA type North Texas, right? And it's a little bit different. Like even like on the Almanac, right, which I totally recommend you buy. It's so good, I bought it twice. I bought it early, and I was like, I forgot to buy it, and I bought it, and I saw that it had two shit. I was like, I spent $40 on this thing, but it's good. A lot of people that love college basketball, and then they wrote about it, and everybody got together and did it. It's good stuff. That they have North Texas listed on like the big programs, right? AAC, it's on there, right? Like, so there's just a little bit more attention paid to us now, right? It used to be you kind of just see North Texas kind of pops up trying to get a game in the non-conference. They go into the darkness that is Conference USA. And I think that's unfair to Conference USA because unlike the football conference, Conference USA was a very good league, right? I mean, we everybody talked about it. FAU in the Final Four, North Texas NIT champ, UAB NIT finalist, and then there was a CBI winner, right? There were some good teams there. There was some good games. It just nobody really cared, and that's all fine, whatever, right? Put that aside. But now people are going to pay a little bit more attention, right? You get a little bit more of those, ESPN games, right? And so North Texas would have some of those parts of the season where they're sort of figuring it out because that's kind of the nature of any team. You have an idea of what it's going to be, right? You're like, man, it's going to be great. Our guards are going to be doing this. And then it maybe doesn't quite work out that way, right? Even last year, right? The guy that we all thought was great, especially late, Kai Huntsberry, early on in the season, he was a little deferential. He wasn't quite being the guy that we needed him to be, or he would go on to be. And there's a lot of human stuff happening there, right? New guy to the team. He don't want to just, he didn't want to rattle things. Like, I know it's not my team. Everybody's like, hey, you got to just take those shots. Would you believe you? We trust you with that kind of thing. And then he got to the point where he could do some of that stuff in the NIT tournament, right? So it was fine. You lose some of those early ones because, or it struggle early, so that way you could do it late.
Like last year, everybody knew it was Tyler Perry's team. There was no question as to Tyler Perry was number one, number two, number three. Like that was it. It was his team, right? Coming into this year, like Ruben and Aaron are they're up there, but it's not really like, hey, it's their team. So like you lost a lot, but these guys coming in aren't under the same thing. Like there's not a dominant star that they're walking into. So I think that changes the dynamic a little bit. I think they won't be maybe as hesitant as Huntsberry was at the beginning of last year. We're like, hey, I'm just going to defer to Tyler Perry and I'm going to let him do everything.
I
Right?
mean,
There's
yeah, and all that depends on the guys, right? Because like that's the nature of any team, right? There's a little Storman, Foreman, Norman, all that stuff where you have to get to know each other. And I mean, while it's good that North Texas is coming off an NIT win, right? Because you're like, hey, look, this team has won, so you're stepping into the team. Like it, I'm not saying it will happen, but there's always that potential where like, hey, you're not doing our standards. You know, if we have a conflict of agreement, like, oh, you're supposed to do this, or hey, I won, and you haven't won, or something like that. There's not again, not to say those things happen, right? It will happen. There's always that potential. So I take your point. I think you're right. That's an element of it, right? If you're a guy like Kai Huntsberry who's going to come in, sort of a scorer, and there's already a scorer, you're like, okay, well, this is kind of your thing, right? I'm gonna let you do the thing. But then when that scorer gives you permission and then trusts you to go do your thing, then you can go play with freedom. Same thing. Like somebody's gonna have to settle into the scoring role. Somebody's gonna have to settle into the, maybe somebody's gonna have to is gonna end up with a role that they didn't sign up for, right? I mean, you think about like Jaden Martinez. We wanted him to be maybe a shooter, a little bit more of a scorer, and then sometimes he ended up having to do some grunt work and get rebounds and pass the ball, and he got yanked and sat on the bench for a little bit. That's the nature of the game, right? You're competing not only against the other team, but against your teammates for time, for opportunities, right? Not everybody's gonna get the last shot of the game. Not everybody's gonna be playing their favorite role. Somebody's gonna have to go stand in the corner and wait for the ball or be a decoy.
right.
And that's fine. That's
Yeah.
the nature of it. And what I'm saying is that like don't expect us game one to come out and score 150 points. But
No, no, I wouldn't
yeah,
either. But I mean, I think we're like Ruben and Aaron, where you'll and Sissoko, where you'll see their impact early is the standard set defensively,
yeah,
right? We Ross Hodge, he created that standard with McCaslin. The standard is still there. Like
yeah,
how they won games and built this program, that is still in place. And the players that helped bring it along, they are still there. So like
yeah,
that's huge. And I think that'll help in the early season because, as I mentioned, in the preview and now Northern Iowa, that's game one, that's been added. But then you look at, like you're going into the Charleston's Classic where you're playing St. John's, which is you're facing one of the best coaches in all of college basketball, and Rick Pitino, and that's a top 25 team. Your next game is against maybe Dayton or LSU, and Dayton is picked to win the A10, and LSU is an SEC team. You've got Houston in that tournament. You've got Utah. You've got Wake Forest. Like that's big time. You're going on the road to Boise State. That's a top two Mountain West team. That's right picked to finish below San Diego State, who went to the Final Four. Like that is a tough. And then you go on the road to Mississippi State, who's a top five SEC team. I look back at the schedule, the COVID year, where when Hamlin and them kind of came on and we were going to VCU. I think we played Mississippi State that year.
yeah,
Like we had a really tough schedule, and they were close in a lot of games. They were losing by like one or two possessions, and it was like we're just not finishing the games. Like that guy is like not there. And then once they hit the UT Arlington game, and Hamlet took over, that season just took off. And so, maybe you see that this year, but where you're saying also as well is the conference that we're in, it's not weak bottom half Conference USA, right? This is the American. You have two top 25 programs in there. You got Memphis and Penny Hardaway in that group. You have the FAU returning pretty much everything from a Final Four team, keeping their whole program intact. You have Tulane and Ron Hunter, they're really good. You got UAB, Andy Kennedy. I mean, like he just replaces every year. Like they're loaded again. And there's other teams. South Florida, they had a really good transfer group that came in, and they have a new coach. East Carolina, they got the big guy from Louisiana, Brown. He transferred in there. So Wichita State, new coach Paul Mills came from Oral Roberts. They may be down a little bit below us, but I mean, like you look at the bottom tier. If you're looking at the preseason rankings, the bottom tier teams are like Tulsa. and they got all the Louisiana Tech guys who we know. Kobe Williams is a good basketball
Yeah.
player, and like he's going to
But
help Tulsa be a better
not only
team.
that, they got Keaston Willis, they got Kobe Williams, and they have the coach under whom they shone brightly. You know, yeah. So that yeah.
Exactly,
That,
and they
see,
added other
I
pieces
think yeah,
too.
that was a guy that you said both of us were like, in agreement that he was like one of the top three coaches in Conference USA.
Yeah,
Yeah, that like you know, I think this is a great point. So I want to stay on it for a little bit. Is that there's a lot of good teams. Like you said, Charlotte was pretty good. They lost their coach, Ron Sanchez left, but they are still good. They have the talent. They have the foundation. Like usually you go to a team like right now UTSA is pretty terrible. They're the carryover from Conference USA, and they got basically a whole new squad. We don't know what they're going to be like, but you can say, you know what, the guys making decisions are the same guy making decisions, and I don't know that they're going to be super amazing. But all that said, North Texas still had a couple of scares going down to San Antonio on those weird nights when you have to go down there, that kind of thing. So you can't take anybody lightly. Um, and like there's no FIU. FIU they were a tough team, and they jump up on you just because of the nature of that trip there. So add all of that, you got to take weird trips to places you've never been, but also good programs, good coaches, right? Like sometimes a team doesn't have it, but they just got a talent, and there's a lot of teams like that here. Like we're talking about Conkle and Tulsa, right? Um, Conkle's a good coach. He's about defense. He revamped his whole squad. He added Keaston Willis, who was from Louisiana Tech, like you said, Kobe Williams from Louisiana Tech, and a host of other guys to play his style of basketball. And if we're like, oh, what was their style of basketball? Oh, the kind of basketball that beat North Texas in the conference tournament, right? So hey, let's put a little asterisk next to Tulsa because they might be dangerous, right? So it's not just like where are they in the rankings. It's all relative. This is rankings here, but I take a lot of these teams against a lot of other programs, including a lot of ones that we left from Conference USA. Yeah, I think it's exciting because it's there's a lot of meaningful basketball in the regular season. That like everybody like to play that game, right? Oh, we're gonna get a tourney bid, or we can do some bracketology, and I was always very cynical about it, and I said like it could happen, but because of the nature of everybody's perception of Conference USA and stuff, and then how tough it is to get some non-conference games as North Texas, right? That you basically have to go undefeated in regular season, right? And then not get knocked out of the tournament. And then you have to have the right combination of loss or other teams in the final four of your tournament for them to be like, you know what? Okay. I think there was a very real possibility that FAU could have got snubbed if, like, say, North Texas would have won, right? They would have been like, well, they were good. I mean, it happened in Middle Tennessee a couple years ago, right? Like, if they would have done it, it would happen. And we're talking about a Final Four team. Like, we knew they were good. We knew that North Texas could compete with them because we saw it. North Texas had a lead, it was like 5 minutes to go in both games against them, right?
yeah.
Home and away. Again, against a Final Four squad. And it was a very real possibility where they would have been left out, right? So you say, well, a team, like two of the loss, and then we lost to UTEP, whatever. It's stuff like that where you just has to be perfect all the way there. So here's a chance. Here's some teams we can play that game a little bit more realistically with the AAC schedule. You can,
Absolutely.
yeah. So it's going to be a different fan experience for us, for you and I, just to figure out what it's like. It's like, are you ready to watch a big time game? It's not going to be, oh, it's a big time game. It's a huge game. Where's my ESPN Plus? It's going to be a big time game. It's going to be on, one of the ESPN networks there.
Although unfortunately, the game against Memphis is on ESPN Plus. Like, I
Well,
mean, that's
they can always flex that. It's always a thing.
and it's weird because there's no like big like major conferences playing on that day. It's just kind of like hey, because I went and looked and I was like, okay, is Duke North Carolina playing on that day? I'm like, is Purdue and Ohio State? No, there's nobody.
What date is that game?
That's like February 17th, I think.
What is
So, like you were mentioning, so this is a multi-bid league. Conference USA is, I'm sorry, the American Athletic is a
February?
multi-bid league, right? And how North Texas has set up their schedule, non-conference, and what the conference has, the opportunity is there that if they can win some of the games in non-conference, like if you can go on the road and beat Boise State at Boise State, and Maybe you upset, Mississippi State, and maybe you win. Maybe you lose to St. John's, but you beat LSU, and then you maybe win the next game or play a close game, and then you finish third or fourth in the American, right? The opportunity then is there to be in that at large conversation, because I think where we're going to start out, Haslametrics has us, I think, ranked 80th. I'm interested to see what Ken Palm has us ranked. It's probably going to be somewhere similar in the 60 to 80 range. So, how we progress throughout the year and our efficiency numbers, defensive efficiency, it's going to be up there again. But I do think that in the years past, like you mentioned, like you had to be perfect. It's not the case this year, right? You have to take advantage of your opportunities, and you got to win some of these non-conference games and take care of business, and beat somebody like Memphis or beat FAU. But you can be there at the end of the season and be in that at large bid discussion.
Yeah, I think it works out, right? So, by the way, North Texas finished 31-7 last year and 31st in Ken Palm's basketball rankings. In case you're wondering, just by comparison. Yeah, so like, we talked a few years ago. I think North Texas started out and they played cupcakes, right? It was very easy, and they started out like 20-1 or something like that. I forget what it was, and that's great to get hype, right? When you build a program. Like, what does this team need? We talked about that, right? You said the way they built this program is there. The culture is established. The guys that help establish the culture are all there, right? So everybody's trying to do that. Like, Tulsa, Eric Conkle is trying to establish that. He was like, we're trying to play defense, but nobody was playing defense. So he swapped out everybody in the whole squad. And so, you have to figure out what it is. And sometimes you need easy wins, right? We're talking about in the football game. Sometimes, you know what? Yes, statistically and analytically, it'd be great if we threw a 50-yard pass right now. But for the guy's mental states, let's throw a little 3-yard pass right here and get get something positive. So yeah, let's schedule a cupcake here early in our tenure. Let's get some wins. Let's build up the crowd. Hey, we're 20-0. Because look, most people don't know. They're like, oh, this basketball team's 20-0. They don't know that their RPI ranking is. They don't care, right? They don't have no quad one wins. They don't know what that means. And that's fine. Because at the time, what's more important that you win. That's why you go sign up for the CBI or whatever. Because at the time, that's what people care about. Now, right, you want people to care about the NCAA tournament. You want people to care about that. This program is in a different place than it was when Mac signed up for the job. And so, yeah, like, what we want is to figure out what this team going to be. I think what's a little different is that they have to hurry up and get there a little bit quicker than you could in the Conference USA years, right? Conference USA years is like, let's have some tough early stuff. Let's figure out what we're going to be in like that middle range. Once we hit conference season, we'll kind of know what we are, and then we'll just establish that. We know we got to aim for the conference tournament. You know the shape of the season and where you need to be ready, right? In the NBA, you kind of build to the regular season so you can be ready for the playoffs. It's a little bit like that in college basketball, but also your resume matters in college basketball. So you might not be there at the end if you're not taking care of business in the middle, right? So, yeah, you still want to peak at the end of season, February, March, right? Ready to go. You know who your scores are. Everybody's healthy. You got it down. You have your rotation, but you can't be awful, right? You can't be awful in November and December. You have to hurry up and figure it out, but not in the same kind of way. That's for me is the most interesting part, right? What's good, you know who our guys are. You know you can trust Sissoko. You know you can trust Jones. You know you can trust Aaron Scott. But those are only 3 guys, right? You need 5 guys on the court at all times, right? Can you close out a game with only the guys that were there the last time? I don't know that. I'm talking about like Scott, Sissoko, Stone, Jones, and who else? Like what? More? You can roll them out there. That's the part.
I mean, those guys aren't going to be.
Yeah. But you get my point. Is that like that's not enough? Maybe they aren't. Maybe they've grown into the thing. But that's where you're looking at the new guys, right? And saying, okay, what's his name? Walker, Rondell Walker. Can you do the kinds of things that Kai Huntsberry did for North Texas, winning plays? And that it's not just scoring, right? Because Kai Huntsbury did some winning, but he took some charges. He got some steals. He made the right rotation. He knew the offense. All those things. He set the right screens. Those things are winning plays. And yes, he's a good player. There's a lot to like about him. He's a senior. He's developed. He's a physically mature. All that good stuff. But can you do it when it matters, right? When it's tough and you're on the road someplace and you got to make a play against a very talented squad somewhere else? That's the question, right?
So we talked about it with the football thing, was early on establishing that mentality that you're going to be a tough team. And like we heard it under McCaslin, we're hearing the same things under Hodge. Like the practice that they're doing now, they know what it takes to win a championship at the end of the year. Like they know what the standard is, right? So I think like those guys will be able to. Somebody's going to establish themselves to make winning plays. These are good basketball players. They came from, C.J. Nolan. He was at Oklahoma, under a good defensive coach, Porter Moser, right? Who came from Loyola, who was a Final Four team, and they were all about their defensive mentality. So they brought him in because they thought he could play defense. But, he's going to have to do some offensive things too. And the same thing goes for Rondell Walker. He's been at good programs, Oklahoma State and TCU. Those are good programs. The Ole Miss one, a little bit Kerman Davis, I don't know. He's kind of a little funky guy there. But, we brought in guys. We brought in dudes, as Jerome Tang. Like, we got some dudes that I think can help us compete in the American and do those winning plays. And, we have a culture. The culture is the same that it's been. So I think they're set up to be, it's not going to be like the years past. There's going to be some disappointment. There's going to be some struggles. But man, I get excited thinking about the schedule and the games. And
that was a part of, like, the last couple years. Like, outside of that non-conference thing, like, for me, it was always like, let's see what we have, knowing that that non-conference schedule was an incomplete team. Sort of, you know what I mean? Like, it was a team that was sort of figuring out who it's going to was. You kind of maybe have everybody in the roles, but you're like, you know what? Does this guy close out the game? Does that guy do it? Does this guy, is he fully baked in? Does he understand what we're trying to do fully, right? We can see, is he hesitant? You're trying to figure out what you're going to be. And then it sort of pauses, and then you go through Conference USA's schedule where you're like, we're good enough to just out-execute a lot of squads. Like, be a good defensive team that's going to, beat up a Rice, I think, UTSA. And a lot of it is just sort of managing everything and just making sure that, guys are not bad, right? Everybody's playing at least 80%, 90%. And then you want to peak for the UABs, for the, FAU on the road, for Middle Tennessee, who's got good for a second. Those kinds of things. Those are the big games. This one's a little different, right? It's a little different this time. And so you still have that non-conference, but it's a little bit more that non-conference is getting you ready for the conference play, really and truly, because you're going to have a lot more, you're going to be tested night in, night out in a way that you weren't so much in Conference USA. I know I'm like at odds with myself saying Conference USA was good, but a lot of people didn't take it seriously. But I think AAC is better than Conference USA, but it's not, Conference USA wasn't bad. Just there's a little bit more depth, I think.
Right.
So yeah,
and the good teams are really good teams.
Yes,
like they're
yeah. I mean, you're taking the program that won, UAB, that won a conference title, right, league title, UAB, challenged North Texas. You're taking a Final Four participant in FAU. You're taking North Texas, which won the NIT, was thereabouts competing for conference titles last 3-4 years. And then you're taking a Charlotte, which got better. I think Charlotte's a little weak. UTSA is a little weak. Rice is a little weak. But I mean, you're taking the cream. I think if they added like Western and Louisiana Tech, then you basically have the top of Conference USA the last 6-7 years, right? You didn't take a middle or something like that there, but I think there's a lot of teams in the AAC are better than middle, and that middle was like press a lot and they have a lot of lengthy dudes. A lot of guys in the AAC are the same kind of thing where they have freaky length and that kind of stuff,
Yeah, I mean, Memphis obviously comes to mind. Although, like, we don't know what's going to happen with, Memphis's best player, DeAndre Williams, the big power forward guy. Like, he had the waiver and they denied the waiver initially, and now they've done that where they submitted the extra information, and so we wait and see, like, is that guy going to play? I mean, that's a big part of their
Call
team.
it the
They're
North
still
Carolina
good
rule.
enough.
Well, I wonder
Yeah,
what
I
that
know they're.
extra information was. Was it a couple
Yeah,
Benjamins on top? It's like, oh, I forgot.
I don't.
I'm
I have
joking.
no idea. So that's Memphis is still balanced without him, but that's just another element. So I think that's one other thing when you're looking at the teams in this league, that the post play. Like I think the post play is really really good in this league compared to Conference USA. Like I know you're bringing over Max Fielder from Rice and stuff, but I think, like, East Carolina and some of the other groups, they've got some really good post guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as familiar with the AAC. I tried to watch a little bit of last year, but I was just watching Conference USA. I'm not as familiar with the squad, all the squads top to bottom, like I was with Conference USA. And so I'm excited about that, seeing some different games. Sometimes tuning into like a FIU. I'm glad I don't have to watch FIU's court anymore. I hate that place. Things sucked.
No, we
We'll
get to
see
go
what.
to good venues. Wichita
Yeah,
State, I mean, like that's a great basketball venue. Memphis's venue, that's a great basketball venue. So
yeah.
um, it's great. I think it's like
He,
I think a lot of people are wondering who's going to be that guy that takes the shot at the end of the games for UNT.
Yeah, I think that's something that they figure out. And I mean, a few years ago, prior to Javion Hamlet, it was a little bit by committee. There was a little bit of Roosevelt Smart kind of doing that, but it was a little bit by committee. You had Michael, what's his name? I can't remember everybody's name anymore. But it was a little bit like they just run the offense. And that was a little hit or miss. That could be good, it can be bad. I think there's a lot of ways to play basketball, and that's one of the things about like sport that is fun and exciting, is that you're given a challenge, right? Just a disparate group of guys, and then you have to figure out how you're gonna go beat another guy, beat another team at this sport, right? And there's a lot of ways to do it, right? You see bully balls, like we're just gonna be physical, and then not let anybody move. They're gonna hurt. Their arms are gonna hurt. Everything's gonna just hurt. And the other teams are like, we're just gonna outrun them. They're not, they may be better, but they can't keep up with us, and they're not gonna be real good. It's hard to play basketball when you're sucking wind, and you can't feel your
Yeah,
face. That's the plan. And the other teams, we're just gonna be so skilled, right? Just bounce passes, the baby steps, you know what I mean? Just perfect screens. Everything is just going to be perfect. We're going to outskill them, some little Princeton offense, that kind of stuff. And other teams that take a combination of all that. I think it's great. North Texas, in case you wonder if all the noobs, they play defense. They don't allow the middle, right? No middle defense. It's kind of a popular thing across college basketball, but they basically say no one's coming towards the middle, like literally at all. We're gonna push everything wide and outside into the baseline, and you kind of give up some threes that way, but it's very difficult, especially if they're challenging threes. North Texas sometimes gets into trouble where they'll foul the guy, but
yeah,
they're saying we're going to be great and give so much effort. We're going to make everything difficult for them. And in 3-4 years of basketball, that's been the case. They are very good defensively. North Texas has been very good. They've been outsized, right? They were outsized definitely against Purdue in the NCAA tournament. Still gave a great account of themselves, like rebounding the ball. All those things that you think you just be big, you get a rebound. It takes effort, right? There's positioning, there's, like, again, jumping ability, all the other stuff. But a lot of it's effort, right? Effort to get in the right spot, effort to block out, effort to do second, third, fourth leaps. That's North Texas. And offensively, this is what we've been talking about. They've been very deliberate. They made this switch a few years ago. It was McCaslin saying he liked to push the pace, but he said, you know what? Let's value every possession, like it's the final possession. And so we're going to look for the great shot every time. And at worst, it can look very stagnant, and you throw it out to Tyler Perry, and he has to do a fadeaway three. So that's like, it's a little bit like what we were saying about Chandler Rogers, right? Hey, look at your options. You have 5 guys going out for pass. Some offenses say, you know what, we don't trust you to do that. So we're just gonna look at one route combination, a little high low, look, nothing, get rid of it, right? Or a little RPO, run, pass, that's it. Just get rid of it. Don't make too many decisions. In other offenses, you have to go through your options. But sometimes you can be too deliberate. Like, where's the best pass? No, he's not open the way I want him to be open. The wind's kind of blowing. Let me see. So you kind of, there's bad there. So that's the worst. But when it's worked, and it worked, we'll say 31 times last year, 31 out of 38 games, right, for North Texas. You get a very efficient offense, right? You're not just chucking up something ugly. You're not just, throwing the ball at the rim, basically. You're deciding whether or not this is the right basketball play. And North Texas is very good at that. What they want to do is still keep that. Let's make great basketball decisions, but let's make them quicker. You know what a great basketball decision is? Dunking the basketball, right? That's easy. It's an easy 2 points. You'll take an easy 2 points anytime, right? Yes, you can. Threes are better than twos, but a wide open two on a dunk by a guy that can, who's 6'9", is a really great option, and you should choose that option more times than not. And so what you're saying is, like, let's play great defense, suffocate every option, and when we get the ball, let's look for that easy option, right? Reuben Jones is great bringing the ball up court. Aaron Scott can run like the wind. He's a ridiculous athlete. So if you have Reuben Jones pushing the pace and then just dropping off a nice little behind-the-back pass to a sprinting Aaron Scott who catches it and dunks it, that's a great offensive play.
Or Moulet. You had Hodge in his off-season press conference say he's the fastest straight line guy on the team.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's a bit frightening, right? He's like 6'9". Can you imagine just run at you?
Yeah, no, I know.
Take a charge.
Can we put that guy on the edge of the 3-3-5 that we're running? We're struggling on the edge. We need somebody like that.
Hey Mullah, what do you say? Do you know what a third down is? Yeah. So I think that's all great and it's exciting. I'm excited about it. Here are the projected standings from the Almanac. I'll give you there. They have FAU. I think that's a little bold. They're back, but I mean that's a little bold. FAU, Memphis, UAB, Tulane, North Texas Mean Green, Wichita State, East Carolina, Rice, SMU, Temple, South Florida, Charlotte, Tulsa, and UTSA. I mean, I'd probably swap Tulsa and Charlotte. I think Charlotte, they lost their coach. I know they have a lot of the same people. I think Tulsa, they have a good coach, and they got a couple guys. Like Kobe Williams, very good. Keeson Willis is a shooter, and he kind of knows the system. He's sort of important, a little bit of the culture. I don't think UTSA is going to be very good. But, other than that, it's hard to disagree with a lot of what they have here. Did you have your rankings, didn't you?
Yeah, I had Memphis 1. I had FAU 2, UAB 3, Tulane 4, North Texas 5, Wichita State 6, South Florida 7, East Carolina 8, SMU 9, Tulsa 10, Temple 11, Rice 12, Charlotte 13, UTSA last. Yeah. Temple's bringing in a new coach coming from the Micah Shrewsbury, the Penn State regime there. So they've always had a great basketball program. Well, I'm not saying always, but there's basketball history at Temple. They're known for the John Chaney, the zone defense type of days. But yeah, South Florida, like I mentioned already, the infusion of talent there. East Carolina, they were decent last year. They got a lot of the same pieces coming back. They added in the big guy that was at Louisiana Lafayette last year. I think his name is Jordan Brown. And that's a big piece for them. So, some people aren't. A lot of people like Tulane. I know some people don't. They have a really great backcourt. UAB, a lot of people have been picking Eric Gaines for the player of the year. And it's just kind of confusing to me. I think he's a great player, but I don't think he's the type of guy that's the best player in this conference. We've seen enough of it. I think people are expecting him to be the next Jelly Walker, and he's not the next Jelly Walker. Insane athlete. We're not saying that he's not, a great player, but there's other good basketball players in this conference that I think will win over him.
Yeah, and I also thought that Eric Gaines, last year at least, he played a lot off of Jelly Walker because everybody's game plan was stop Jelly Walker, right? I was asking again in my investigative journalism. I was like, how are you talking to FA people? How are you stopping Jelly Walker? Like, what? How do you defend him? And they're like, you just can't let him get the ball. I mean, he's gonna get the ball, but he's just so tough and whatever. But basically, their game plan is him. So I don't know what a UAB with Eric Gaines as your number one looks like because I think he operated with a lot of the freedom provided by everybody's game plan, focusing on Jelly Walker.
Yeah.
So hey, Eric Gaines is going to get the number one defender, right? He's going to get the focus of the game plan. Is he good enough to overcome that and still put up 20 a game, and still be the best player? I don't know. I mean, he's good. I have all the respect in the world for him. He had a couple of the best dunks I've seen in person. Yeah. But I mean, hey, a couple highlight dunks don't win you MVPs. Darvin Ham, the coach of the Lakers, he was a highlight reel dunker, but he's not a Hall of Fame player. He was not an MVP player. He's just a guy that hey, he has some crazy dunks. That's a little old school for you guys. Here's what I got to say about new coaches and new places, right? Tulsa got Eric Conkle. I was high on Eric Conkle. I thought he was a very good coach at Louisiana Tech. He didn't turn it around in 1 year, right? So you're just getting a new guy from a regime like, say, a Charlotte, right? Charlotte got Ron Sanchez from Virginia. He brought the pack line. And it took them a lot of years before they did anything that was even close to being like, hey, this is good. And, I mean, you can point to Mark Price and say, well, it's his fault. But whatever. I don't know that he brought in a whole lot and did a whole lot very quickly. I mean, everything's hit or miss. Why a guy succeeds at a place is, a lot of it's down to him. A lot of it's down to the support that he has, all the other stuff, right? You can't just take one piece of a puzzle and then drop them in somewhere else and say, all right, now we have some of the magic. It's going to grow here, right? Now you don't know. Right, so that's just again for anybody watching or looking at the AAC and just looking at that or taking any of our predictions and be like, well, you said. I mean, yeah, you get a guy from. Nobody hires anybody from a bad program. Anybody gets hired from a good.
I don't know. Yeah. Somebody might do it.
Yeah, and their Texas back in the day.
Charlotte's big guy. I was going to tell you that Ali Khalifa guy. He's not there anymore.
Yeah, he left. Yeah.
BYU. So, but getting back to your point where there's a lot of pieces, a lot of new pieces coming in, and whatnot. Like I think Grant McCasland was always really good at creating that team atmosphere, bringing in a bunch of different pieces, but getting them to be a team by the end of the season. Like, and I tied that into the preview piece where in the era that we're in college basketball, like you're reshaping your roster almost every single year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what junior college coaches have done for the longest period of time.
Yeah.
Like they would have guys there for 1 or 2 years, and that's where McCasland got his start. Well, Ross Hodge is the same thing, and he was maybe even more successful than Grant McCasland was at the JUCO level, right? So he's done this, and that should give you good feelings, good vibes as a UNT fan. Like it's not Tony Benford coming in that's just going to ruin everything. Like he knows how to win as a head coach already.
Yeah, the last time we lost a beloved head coach, we got the worst period of basketball that I've seen in North Texas. So I mean, I forgive anybody if you're just a little bit, you're guarding your heart a little bit. I get it, but I think I agree with Greg. Hey, don't worry so much.
I just think, it feels different, right? Because you're keeping somebody that was so instrumental in the previous regime, right? Ross Hodge was so instrumental in helping create this defensive culture, and he continues. But he's had that experience as a junior college coach. He was successful, and so that should give you good feelings that it may not be early in the season when this team comes together, but eventually they will get there, and they will be a scary team to face down the road.
So I think a challenge that Ross Hodge has that is different from his time as the head guy at JUCO. I don't think it's a big deal, but it's worthy of discussion, right? Is that he has all of the other things that come with being a head coach, right? All the things you're talking about, the basketball stuff, recruiting, molding the team, the in-practice type stuff. I think that he's a great, candidate to perform those functions for North Texas. Where we don't know if he's going to be great is all the other stuff, to being the cheerleader for the program, right? Saying the right things, because you're not when you speak at a press conference, you're not only talking to your team or whatever. You're also talking to the donors, to your bosses, to the fans, to the annoying people like us that take what he says and start talking about it and quoting him on whatever, right? And I know he's been fine. He jump on like the green, whatever they call it, the green guy, green podcast, that one. He's done a little bit of that, but those are friendly faces, right? It's also friendly faces and big time fans that kind of know him, right? Is he gonna be the kind of guy that's willing to do like I said, the dirty work, being on the shows, the morning shows, waking up at 6 to call in to the Musers or something like that, where they talk to him and all that other stuff to go out and sell the program in a way that's part of the job, right? Now it's everybody's thing, right? Rick Pitino has to go out and sell the job, smile, shake hands, high five. He don't want to be there. He wants to be doing some basketball, but he has to be there. And so Ross Hodge, sure, you had to do that at JUCO college, but doing it at JUCO college is different than doing it at North Texas. And then just the same way doing it at Kentucky is different than at North Texas or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I
Yeah,
think he's well known even in those circles in the media behind the scenes
yeah,
because of you know what their defense was. People wanted to know like why is
yeah,
North Texas so good at defense? What was the writer Matt Norlander,
yeah,
did a piece on hey Ross Hodge is kind of the next big thing, and
yeah,
and people already knew like hey when McCaslin's leaving like hey it's pretty much going to be Hodge because like he's just been
yeah,
groomed to be that part. But I mean, he went out and got a good staff, right? North Texas has had great staff members. You look at that first group that was here that had Dowling and had the dude who's at Mississippi State now, and his name is because he was a guy that was mentioned for the New Mexico
yeah. I forget his
job.
name.
God, I can't think of it. It was one of their first staff guys. Like that whole first staff with McCaslin, like they're all head coach material, right?
Yeah,
And so the group that he has now, Phil Forte, for those people like us that grew up watching Big 12 basketball, Phil Forte at Oklahoma State, like he was a great player, and he's from the Metroplex, and I think that helped with a lot of the recruiting. He was an assistant coach with St. Louis, where you were at,
yeah,
and they had a lot of good talent there. So another guy, Jace Hurl, that he brought in from Missouri State, a JUCO type of guy, and Johnny Estelle, and then keeping guys like Andre Shaw and promoting him up the ranks. They do have a really good staff still, and I think that will help him with all those other duties.
yeah. Like I said, I have full confidence in him. It's just a thing worth noting that like it's. There's been a lot of guys that are great at being the second guy. I mean, you look at Ron Sanchez. He left. He's like, you know what? I'm tired of this. Sure, I'm going to go back to Virginia. There's a lot of guys that are good at being second guys, and they don't want to be the number one guy. And that's fine because I think there's a lot of other stuff that comes with it, not just media stuff. And I will say, though, that North Texas media, that is media surrounding North Texas basketball, is very friendly. There's nobody talking any noise because, whatever.
Except for me.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm saying. But then you and this is the thing. I think you can see because it's that, right? That if you're like, wow, yeah, it was maybe not the best decision. Everyone's like, what? And you talking mean about our player? You get that, right? Yeah, that this group is not ready for like a Kentucky. Like it's crazy. I was driving through Kentucky. You could just see it like on the radio. People start talking about Kentucky basketball and like on talk radio. Nobody's doing it over in Denton. They're not like, all right, let's talk North Texas. Let's look at Mulai Sissoko. Is he gonna step up? Nobody's having a hot take. They're not writing their run sheet saying what kind of hot takes am I gonna have about Sissoko that's gonna get drive time radios calling in because everybody's just like, hey, they're gonna be good. Let's do a puff piece. Great, right? Vito just says, hey, they're gonna be pretty good. Kicks it out there, and everybody's like, yeah, thumbs up, right? There's no hot take
But I
money to
think
be made on hot takes
that's
about North Texas. Yeah.
basketball in general in the state of
Yes.
Texas. Like, I mean, nobody, you don't see anybody really writing about, Rodney Terry down there in Texas yet because the Texas football program is doing okay. You don't see anybody,
Yeah.
writing things. Well, I mean, Kelvin Sampson's doing great at Houston, but Scott Drew at Baylor. I mean, there's good programs around the state, but I mean, nobody. Maybe at Texas Tech,
No,
there
but
was
yeah,
obviously.
but it's the same way though. That like it's like, hey, it's great, and they'll pay attention. But when it's not great, they just don't pay attention, and that's it. They're just kind of like, yeah, they're not so good. But yeah, like you said, we in Texas care about football. If the team is bad, people are angry and upset and saying, "What's going on? We gotta fix this. We cannot have this team. They look terrible." I guess maybe except Texas State, they let them be bad for a while, but they're good now.
Yeah.
So like I mean, there's that, and I think all that's fine. Whatever. I'm not saying there needs to be more. People can only care about what they care about. But this is a good time because like the Rangers are winning. The Cowboys suck again, I guess. They got blown out. But the Rangers are winning, and so then everybody's happy and caring about other things. So it's a perfect time to sneak in there, kind of jump in and figure out if you're going to be good. If you're good, then you can say, hey, everybody, look at us. We're good again right away, right off the bat. And if you're not so good, you say, you know what? We're working towards being good. So just give us some time, and then it'll be
Man,
okay.
I don't know. I think it's a weird dynamic because I think people were expecting a little bit more from Eric Morris in year one. So, I mean, for UNT fans specifically, they are expecting this basketball team to be good. Like they're counting on them. Like, I mean, I turn on the football games on Saturday
People talking
and
about
we're
the
missing
basketball tonight.
45 tackles and we're giving up 400 yards rushing and passing every time. Like, well, you know what? I know that when basketball season rolls around, that we're going to be shutting people down and playing good defense
Yeah.
and winning games with clutch shots. Like right, like I feel like there is a little bit of pressure on them, but we don't know yet, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
like if they aren't successful early on, it'll be interesting to see like how people play that dynamic.
I, I, it all ties together though, because I don't think that we're very basketball sophisticated. I mean, an individual might be. There's a lot of smart basketball fans within the North Texas little community, but like just the average person, like like I said, I was in SEC country one time, and there was some grandma talking about D line play or something like that, right? Just out at the Applebee's or whatever it was that we were at, and so I was like, oh, they care pretty hard about it, right? Like I said, they got hot sports opinions from grandma there. You don't really get that over here, right? They're gonna be like, hey, I thought they're supposed to be good, right? That's like the level of like average fan analysis. How come they're not like blowing them out? That's really it. There's no surface level. It's like, you know what? Let's see how they adapt to this no middle, right? It's not real deep that
Yeah,
way. You know what I mean? It's not like, well, let's see who's gonna take this final shot because last time, there's none of that. It's just like good or
it's
bad.
not the scene from Hoosiers where they bring them into the barbershop at the beginning. Do you believe in the man defense or the zone? Because we can only play zone here. We
Yeah,
only play no middle defense at North Texas.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that like we the fan base is yet to get that point, and so you could say, well, it's good because we kind of operate without that kind of negative toxicity, but also the flip side of that is like people that care real hard about it, they're more willing to throw money at it, right? And so if you want the
Yeah,
resources that a Kentucky has, then you have to have the level of care that Kentucky has also, where they're like, oh, they got to fire Calipari because he lost. You got to do that, right? That's what happens if you want that kind of thing. So you have to figure out what it is that you want. And I mean, I think that's just the nature of the game. I'm excited about North Texas basketball. I think one thing that's happening is just saw the little Mean Green Collective. They're throwing some money at it. Good on them.
yeah.
Good stuff happening there. It's a good time to be a North Texas basketball fan. Prepare yourself for some struggles. We highlighted those. Who's going to take the shots? Who's going to run, like be the primary offense? Do we have a guy that can say, go get us some points because the offense broke down? You need that guy. We've mentioned that before, right? Run the offense. Okay, it's not working. Who do we give it to? I'm fine giving it to Reuben Jones because I think he can get to the cup and he can create his own shot. Um,
Yeah,
but a
I
little
think
bit,
that
Aaron Scott.
that's a
Yeah. Aaron
it's
Scott
a
maybe could
great
do that too.
starting point with Ruben.
Yeah. It
Very.
start at that point and then see if that works out. Like see if he's gonna be the
Yeah,
guy.
I mean there's so many other players that they all are capable in their skill set of getting to the basket. But I think if you start with Ruben, he's such a creator. You say like, look, go either score or find somebody else to score, and like that's where we live. Like put him in the pick and roll situation, or let him go one on one. But I think as the season progresses, I think there's a lot of guys that they can do that with. Like I do think Jason Edwards, CJ Nolan will be those type of players
Or the
and it
Bucks kid.
won't
I
just be
think.
one option.
I mean, he was a
Yeah,
primary scorer over there, right? He can go get a bucket for you, at least against some
yeah,
teams, maybe. I mean, at least against some
yeah.
teams, maybe. I mean, I wouldn't hate seeing a lot of pick and roll between Aaron Scott and Reuben Jones. Like Reuben Jones,
Yep.
because Aaron Scott can pop, he can shoot it, but he also can drive and attack the basket. He can roll and then finish with some authority. I like that. There's a lot of good things. I'm sure they're having fun scheming up some fun plays. They're like, yeah, and then what if we? Then he'll come here, and then he'll screen around there, and then we got him wide open. I like it. All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Gotcha.
we're done. Thanks for listening to the Migrant Nation podcast. Again, subscribe in all the little areas where you can subscribe, all that good stuff. Greg will be hopefully making some more appearances here as basketball season progresses. We got to figure out the time. Everything's different. It's all different. Conference USA schedules are Thursday, Saturday. AAC schedules are similar. We got to figure out when they're going to be, how we're going to do it. But we'll try to get some podcasts in here. You see more of Greg's writing. You know, go subscribe, all that good stuff. And we're done. Coming green.